Hi, everybody. This week we have Easter coming up, so we wanted to get together and we're going to talk about the resurrection story of Jesus. Specifically, what parts of the resurrection story just kind of reach out and grab us. Because in each of the Gospels, they all have a slightly different facet to the resurrection. You see kind of different things with it, and each one also has different items that can, you know how it is sometimes when you're just reading something and something just kind of reaches out and grabs you, and it's okay, this is interesting. So today, it's the stuff that grabs us about the resurrection story of Christ. And for this one, we're going to start with Preston. Preston, what gets you?
So for me, my account is found in Matthew, and like my devotion last week, I talked about how I love a good story, and part of a good story is a lot of epic movements, a lot of action, and so in Matthew 28, it's a very violent account. It talks about the earth shaking, and then there being an angel depicting having the appearance of lightning and having brilliant white clothes. And the sight of that angel was so much that the guards of the tomb fell down in shock and awe. There were women who came to the tomb. They found that Jesus wasn't there. They were told by Jesus to go back to the disciples and to go on to Galilee. For me, it's a great resolution to that cliffhanger that I mentioned last week. After this account, it's recorded that the Pharisees paid off the guards. And said, hey, go and tell the people that while we were asleep, somebody came and robbed the tomb. Which, if it was a Roman guard, they would not have a happy ending from that, because the Roman guard falling asleep on the job was essentially a death sentence.
Yeah, dereliction of duty for the Romans was usually you would not have any other duties ever again.
Yeah, and somebody else, other people have said that, it was temple guards, because they would have probably been more apt to be paid off to go tell people, hey, the Pharisee, hey, no, I fell asleep, and it wouldn't have been as much to them. So for me, the action account found in Matthew 28 is the part that really grabs me. The way I envision the angel coming down is kind of that scene from Lord of the Rings where Gandalf comes out for the first time as Gandalf the White, and loud voice, and just terrifies the three people that are there, and they, oh. So, that's what grabs me most about
the resurrection story extended edition.
Yes.
Yeah, but I mean that is a good thing. Where they're offering to bribe them. In any good story, you've got to have a good villain. I like, watching Bond movies, and we all know what the James Bond villains are like. They're always, really over the top, really bizarre plans.
I was gonna say this isn't him, but
yeah, wrong movie set.
Wrong movie parody of.
Yes, but yeah, you've got those villains of the chief priests, the Pharisees, the leaders, and and here they are still trying to use money to solve the problem of Jesus.
Yeah. So But the guards going out and trying to tell everybody about how nothing supernatural happened here.
Nothing to see here.
I think really segues into what Daniel's got for us.
Well, the thing that grabs me the most about the resurrection account, among all the other things, is something that I actually heard about in one of your sermons a couple years ago. I think I grew up, reading through the book of Matthew almost all my life, and it seems I always missed these two verses. These two, like nothing else. The other three Gospels never mention this. Only Matthew mentions this, and it's found in Matthew 27, verses 52 and 53. And this is pretty amazing, if I may say so myself. The tombs also were opened, and many bodies of the saints who had fallen asleep were raised, and coming out of the tomb, after his resurrection, they went into the holy city and appeared to many. So, essentially what's happening is, after Jesus resurrected, there were many saints who were resurrected after them. And not only that, they went into the city and gave testimony to what was going on. And I'm like, what? Whenever I first heard this, it was amazing. I mean, if you look at the verses preceding that, the curtain had split in two. There was that earthquake, the rocks were splitting, and then the tombs were open and saints were coming out. I think that's one of the most amazing things, and nowhere else do you find that in the Gospels.
Yeah, you don't even find anything about that elsewhere in the New Testament.
Yeah.
You would have thought that at some point in Acts, Peter would have said, "Oh, and by the way, we know Jesus was the Son of God because look what happened when they crucified him. You remember all those dead people we got to meet?"
Yes.
It's completely glossed over, not just by modern teachers, but even back then. They just don't talk about it. And I don't say that because I am absolutely not saying, "Oh, that didn't happen." It's one of those things that's like, it's recorded and then nothing else is said.
Yes.
We don't need to say anything about it because it kind of spoke for itself.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the testimony of God the Father to the people about his Son and being resurrected. And it's made very clear Jesus is God, he is Lord, and he is alive.
Yeah. Here's the hope of resurrection. It's paying off even now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Here's living proof right in front of you.
That's something. Yeah, easy to miss.
Very easy.
But I think what gets me is usually the account. For me, it's the Gospel of John. The interesting thing about the Gospel of John is not just that it's different from the other Gospels, but it's how much of the Gospel is given over to those last moments of Jesus' life. About half of the Gospel of John was like the last week of Jesus' life before the crucifixion. A significant portion of it is the night of the Passover and Jesus' last 24 hours and then the resurrection. But once Jesus is raised from the dead in John chapter 20 and 21, you start picking up an awful lot of details that you only get from somebody who was there. The Gospel of Luke, okay, he researched it. He talked to people, that the story about the disciples on the road to Emmaus, that was Luke probably talking to those disciples. Mark, okay, we think Mark was around for a good chunk of it. There's a lot of speculation that on the night Jesus was arrested, it says a young guy was seized by his cloak and he just shrugs it off and goes streaking off into the night. They think that was John Mark. Matthew, he was a disciple. He would have been there, but John was there leaning on Jesus during that Last Supper. And when we read about his account of the resurrection, there's things like the disciple Jesus loved and Peter took off running to the tomb, but
which I always find that funny.
Yeah.
He lists Peter and then the disciple whom Jesus loved. A little narcissistic.
Well, it sounds narcissistic to us, but that was actually a humble way of referring to himself. Okay. It's easy for us to look and be like, "Oh, look at John, he's the one Jesus loved." But at the time, it was a lot better than just saying, "Hey, I raced Peter," and so we ran, but the disciple Jesus loved outran Peter and made it to the tomb. But he says, he got there and waited, but Peter was the one who went in.
As we say, John didn't cross the finish line.
Yeah, kind of
he
the
did
guy that ran up to it and stopped, and Peter's just right in the hole. And Peter's the one that went in and looked and saw all that. Mm-hmm. He sees the linen cloths lying there, the napkin that was on his face lying there.
Yeah. Something interesting about that napkin, it talks about how it was folded. It was up there at the headpiece folded. In that culture at that time, for a servant, the servant would get the table all set up for the master, and it would be just as the master would want it. And the napkin, if the master got up, wiped his fingers, crumbled the napkin, and threw it off to the side, meant I'm done. I'm finished with my meal. But the fact that it was folded, if it was ever folded at the table nice and neat meant the master is coming back, which very interesting point.
That is a good point. Yeah. But there's little things like that. Even in some of the conversations later on, there are little touches of here's somebody who was there in the midst of it. John stood at the foot of the cross and Jesus looked at him and said, "Bro, take care of my mom." Phil's paraphrase of the Bible again. But, things like that. And it just really drives home to me that, look, these were eyewitnesses. They were there. These were people who would have known Jesus. It wasn't some imposter who faked him out.
Yeah.
This is somebody that they knew exceedingly well. Very close friend. And here they are. He's back. He saw him die, and then he saw the empty tomb, and then he met him later on. And that really, to me, drives home the truth of the resurrection. I know it's not one of those things that we humans often see. You know, I've done a lot of funerals. At none of them have the people gotten up. But yeah, that would be bad. But but here you have somebody present, testifying to it, putting his own stamp of witness on the entire thing. And that to me means this is true. It actually happened. This is something we can rely on. And that to me is really what gets me about the resurrection story. Not just all of these accounts, but look, this happened. It's not just a fancy story. It's not just tacking on a happy ending. This actually happened and is testified to by people who were there.
Yes.
And that's what gives me hope. Because, hey, this isn't it. There's going to be more. We're going to see our loved ones again. We're going to see our God. We're going to be there with Jesus. Because he lives, we can face tomorrow.
Yep, very much so. Absolutely. So,
If you guys want to do us a favor, down in the comments below, if you're on Facebook, down in the comments below. If you're on YouTube, come to our Facebook page and go to the comments. Tell us something that really grabs your attention about the resurrection accounts. We want to hear from you. We want you to discuss with other people something maybe you saw that somebody else didn't, like for Daniel's. Also, like and share the video. This might be a way that somebody hears about Christ for the first time. It's a great way to get people to hear about him, to come to church. And this is the Wednesday before Easter. I really hope that we see you on Sunday.
Yeah.
amen.
Yeah, you've got friends that we never get a chance to talk to. So if you share this with them, say, hey, give it a watch, see what these three goofballs from my church are doing. Maybe they'll be interested. Maybe you'll bring them closer to faith. Maybe you'll bring them to church. We'd love to see you all on Easter Sunday. So,
Have a great week.
God bless.
see ya.